interesting fact that if you were to look up the words human trafficking on the date of Andrew Tate's arrest, December 29th, 2022, the only thing that showed up on the first several pages of search results was Andrew Tate's name, as if all other human trafficking cases just magically ceased to exist. Not only that, but on this exact date, the JP Morgan Bank was actually found to be an association and to have financially benefited from the Jeffrey Epstein operation, a proven sex trafficking operation.
Probably almost everybody in some roundabout way benefited from Epstein. Epstein was literally a billionaire. The guy's net worth was insane. I'm sure he had connections to almost every large company in the world.
To provide a comprehensive coverage of other significant cases really raises questions on the selective focus of specific individuals and events. It's going to be hard to find an impartial jury when this narrative has been propagated within the mainstream media. Pretty much everybody knows the name of Andrew Tate, and a huge part of that is the use of the old clips that have resurfaced from over a decade ago, some of them.
So the recruitment process is the same as the PhD course. The PhD course is my recruitment system. I don't...
By the way, the indictment paperwork does reference these videos, so... Yikes, we got some self-snitching going on. Yikes.
Mention webcam until after I've had sex with the girl.
And these clips are not material, they're not relevant to the case at hand, but they're certainly being used to paint Andrew in a certain light.
Because he admits to sex trafficking, yeah.
Within the court of public opinion. And this was backed up to some degree by a little social experiment that I conducted today. Have you ever heard of someone called Andrew Tate?
I haven't heard much about him, but from what I've heard, I don't agree with what he says.
Okay.
Yeah.
He'll say stuff like about women that I'm just like, I don't like how he says it.
Most of the stuff he says is to get a reaction.
I've heard some stuff that have not been great at all. Some trafficking, misogyny, there's a lot.
But again, you said that you haven't watched any of his long-form videos. This is only based off the mainstream narrative.
Nobody is watching long-form videos. Have you watched a single long-form anything from Epstein? Probably not, but you've got strong opinions about him, right? Like...
Yeah. What do you think is his most controversial take that you've heard at least, or seen through the grapevine?
Whoa, I actually can't think of one right now.
Could you give me one example?
I actually can't. I'm drawing a blank.
Think he's guilty of the charges that he's accused of?
I wouldn't be surprised, honestly, with the controversial topics he was talking about.
Probably guilty.
Guilty? Okay, what makes you say that?
Just based off the stuff he said.
Well, like
misogynistic stuff.
Tate's message of empowerment through masculinity really goes against the grain of what most people consider to be acceptable discourse in...
Nobody cares about empowerment through masculinity. That's literally nobody would give a
to get flown out by Tate so bad.
Nobody would give a if that was all he talked about. Jesus.
Modern times. And this is where dynamics of silencing or attempting to silence figures like Andrew Tate come into play. Like I mentioned in that clip, when people can't control you, they will try to control the perception of you. Now, you guys may disagree with me, but I seem to think that the powers that be, the media, are using these clips of Andrew from over 10 years ago to really control the narrative and also sway the court of public opinion. And they're doing this by conflating unrelated events and behaviors from a decade ago with the current charges at hand in remaining. In fact, that if you were to look up the words human trafficking,
I like how no matter what happens to the Tates, it's going to be like, even if they get, because remember initially, keep track of the goalposts moving, initially they were never even going to get charged because it was all bullshit. But now that they're going to get charged, now the charges are bullshit. So they're going to win in court. If they lose in court and they get convicted, that's bullshit because now they've won in the court of public opinion, the jury's biased, right? There's like literally, there's no way. It's so crazy that you can't just call a spade a spade. Like if I was walking around saying, I like 12-year-olds, here's a video that I've made about how much I love 12-year-olds. If 5 years later it came out that I kids and I got convicted, literally nobody would be, everybody like, yeah, that makes sense. Like it is the least surprising thing in the world that this person is. But for Andrew Tate, who did a whole course on human trafficking and who talked about human trafficking and who talked about scamming the women that he human trafficked and who bragged about human trafficking, and then he gets charged with human trafficking, he's like, what? No shot, no way.